กรุงศรีแบงก์กรุงศรีนะครับ okay the Bank กรุงศรี in Thailand the headquarters is located in Rama 3 Road นะครับ but they need to have the secondary server as well. It's located in Plernjit opposite to Central Embassy because at that time the long time ago the building that is opposite to Central Embassy long time ago it was the headquarters before so that's why now when they have the new headquarters already they use the old headquarters as the backup site just in case that there's something happened to the headquarters building at Rama 3 Road they still have the data located in Plernjit Road that is like the backup that you have to know that large company need to have the plan for backing up and for the backup policy each company must have the written plan for backup written policy for the backup which piece of data will be backup how frequent do you have to back up what media that you have to use for backup some companies use the tape the backup tape as a backup media some of the company use what to say the optical drive like DVD drive or or Blu-ray disc as a backup media some company just use like the SSD or hard drive as a backup media so you have to specify that okay you may have just like backup media 1 2 3 4 what are they and which one will be used first second third next and last because sometimes you may have up to like 4 or 5 copies of this backup so that when you recover them you may have to use a part of each backup from different media or you may have to use media number 1 first something like that if media number 1 is broken you still be able to use media number 2 plus a part of media number 3 something like that it depends on the policy after that rotation schedule when will be the backup happen what is the schedule of it sometimes you may say that okay you would like to just like rotate the backing up schedule for each media that you have got sometimes you just like back it up on cloud sometimes you just back it up on site sometimes you back it up off site these are just like the schedule that you have to prepare and it must be written as a backup policy next is off-siting off-siting as I told you each like large organization they need to have the off-site backup what are backup types that they need to have for example whether they would like to have the full backup or not means you replicate the whole copy of the hard drive from the main server to secondary server that is what I call full server full backup or you just have some differential backup only I'll talk about in the next slide and the next one is retention period how long do we still keep that backup copies sometimes you say that okay you have to keep it for a year sometimes for some companies you just like back it up just let's say 6 months only because you have so many copies so you don't care about it how for the duration that you have to keep let me just like give you an example for everyday's life I'm sure that all of you who drive the car right now you see the all of you have got the dash cam right in front of your car for the dash cam you can see that all the dash cam you need to have like the SD card installed inside the dash cam you can see that okay the data or the MP4 file in your dash cam might be just like 64 gig or 128 gigs only so it doesn't keep everything for a long time because when it's full what will happen it start replacing the very first file that it's recorded sometimes that means if you drive the car all the time every day around like 4 or 5 hours a day we may say that okay the SD card can record up to 3 days. That is 72 hours. So that means if we say that it can be recorded up to 72 hours, the first after the 72 hours pass already, the first file that you recorded on day 1 will be deleted and replaced by the new file นะครับ this is the window นะครับ that you can record the videos on the dash cam, same as the backup นะครับ process as well, because normally if the hard drive นะครับ is very large, you may not have the problem like this, but you need to set up the backup policy as well, because you don't keep everything forever นะครับ the things that you kept for a long time, for example 1 or 2 years นะครับ for example, if you say that, okay, you start backing up the data since 1st of January 2018, so that means it's almost 4 years already. Now it shouldn't be there anymore. Some companies say that, okay, I'll do the archive. So the things that is like the transactions, for 2 or 3 years, you may replaced by the new one. But the things that is a summary, you have to archive. That means, for example, the sales นะครับ report for the first quarter of 2018, even though it's many years already, but you have to do the archive so that you can just like replace that space with the new data นะครับ when you do the archive, that means you keep them forever นะครับ sometimes you say that, okay, when 4th year arrive นะครับ you try to archive the data from the first year in the optical drive, and after that, okay, you can replace you can delete the data from the year 1 นะครับ, when you just like are at year 4 already, so that you have space to do the backup for the new things, because if you just like back it up นะครับ as the archive in the optical drive, it doesn't just like waste a lot of space นะครับ for the optical drive, some of the companies keep those data in the safe นะครับ in the safe, so that it just like it's the fireproof. If there is a fire, they still have the data นะครับ or some of the company, they say that, okay, they can just like do the archive permanently on their cloud server นะครับ it depends on them. Now let's see, we talk about the backup policies นะครับ for the backup type that we have got นะครับ this one that is what I talked about it before. We have full backup, differential backup, incremental backup, and continuous backup. Let's see the each type of backup first นะครับ we talk about full backup. Full backup will back up the whole hard drive นะครับ it back up all the files that we have got. For doing the full backup นะครับ, it's the slowest backup time, because you have to back up everything, every single piece of file or data that you have got, and it requires the most storage space, because, for example, if you said that for the first hard drive you have you spend around like 10 terabytes นะครับ out of 15, let's say, when you would like to back up these 10 terabytes นะครับ into another hard drive, you have to spend 10 terabytes as well, because it's replicate the first hard drive to the second one นะครับ but anyway, on the other way around, when you want to recover, the full backup can be recovered the fastest one. It's a rapid recovery because you have everything already นะครับ all the files can be restored in a single step. For example, some of the company นะครับ or for some of the system admin, they switch นะครับ for example, if the first hard drive is broken, they switch to use the second hard drive straight away, where all the data is in there. So the recovery is the fastest one นะครับ so when it's slow, we don't back it up every day or every time when the transaction happen นะครับ so for example, if one customer just walk into your supermarket, buy a bottle of milk, then you back up the whole 10 terabytes, no ครับ it wastes a lot of time. We do it monthly or weekly only for the full backup นะครับ okay, so normally for the full backup, when we have to do it นะครับ we do it after hours. For example, if we are the bank, you can see that นะครับ if you notice most of the bank during the time around 11 p.m. or midnight, the system is closed. For example, the one that I use, I use SCB, internet banking. At 11 p.m. I can go to their their apps, but I cannot withdraw money or doing anything at that time. At most, I can just have a look on my account balance only. But because at that time the server is backing up and it has a full backup, or some company just do it after midnight because it should be the time that their users use the least. Okay. After that, the second type of backup is differential backup. Differential backup will back up only the files that are new or that are changed since the last full backup. For example, suppose tonight, after midnight, we have the full backup. Anything that happened tomorrow, we just do the differential backup only. We don't need to do the full backup tomorrow, because we did it last night already. Just the thing that is different, for example, if on tomorrow there are like 10 new transactions happen, you just back up that 10 transaction only. The data that happened before, you didn't have to do anymore because you did it already since the last full backup. In this one, differential backup is faster than a full backup to do the backup process and require less storage space, because I told you that, okay, you just do the things that is different from the last backup only. For example, if there are just like 10 transactions happen on Tuesday, let's say, you just do the backup for 10 transactions only. So that's why it requires less storage space. All data can be restored in just two ways, just two steps, by using last full backup plus the last differential backup. So what does it mean? Let me just like open up my iPad. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. So in this one, if we have a look on backup, okay. So if we say that, okay, on yesterday we had the backup like this, we have record 1 to record 100, let's say, and we did the full backup last night. Then you get record 100 already. Suppose on Tuesday, this is on Monday, Monday midnight. On Tuesday, you have record number 101 to 110. You do just the differential backup only because, sorry, I need to just like continue. Okay. Okay. This one, you have the continuing parts that is here. 101 to 110. When you do the backup, you just do the differential backup only. You do just this record 101 to 110. On the next day, if you have the continuing transaction from 111 to 150, when you do differential backup, you just do the backup from record 111 to 150. You can see that you don't need to just like back up the whole thing here. Suppose the system is collapsed. System is collapsed. There's no the left hand side. What are we going to do? You use last full backup plus the differential backup number 1 plus differential backup number 2. Then you get the system with the data from record 1 to 150 by using this part of backup to do the recovery. So this is the way that we do. After that, when we have got the differential backup, the differential backup, normally we do it weekly or daily. For example, we say that at the end of the day, when we pass full backup on day 1, we do the differential backup for is different from last full backup. So we know because we have index, we know that last full backup finished at record number 100. So we just like start doing the backup from record that is after record 100, that is record 101 นะครับ, to the last recordนะครับ, of today, that is 110. So we can do it daily นะครับ some of the company นะครับ they say that okay, they don't have the transaction of this much. For example, we may say that okay, we calculate the what to say, not bonus, commission for the sales representative นะครับ once a week only. Then the differential backup, you should do it once a week as well, because I mean during the week you don't have any calculation for the commission of the salesperson. So that's why you don't need to do the backup on the things that doesn't happen. After that นะครับ we have the incremental backup. Incremental backup will only back up the files that are new or changed since the last backup of any kind. In this one, it's similar to differential backup, but for the differential backup, you see what is different. But for the incremental backup, they just see what is adding on นะครับ of the data. You can see that I can show you with the same picture นะครับ as the previous one. That means or as the original one, you had like you had the record from 1 to 100, and on the next day you have more records, that is record 101 to 110. This one can be considered as the incremental as well นะครับ because you can see that if you consider record 101 นะครับ doesn't exist in the full backup from the last class from the last time นะครับ it can be considered as either differential or incremental. But for the differential or incremental backup is different in that for the differential backup นะครับ for the differential backup you do it weekly or daily นะครับ while the normal incremental backup we do it นะครับ daily or more often or every time นะครับ I mean like for example every couple of hours, let's say. The incremental backup นะครับ is the fastest backup. It requires least storage space because you just like add the new part or new transaction that happened only นะครับ as you save the file that have never been backed up before. However, it requires many restore steps, one for each incremental backup. For example, if you have the incremental backup for 5 times after the last full backup, you have to just like combine all the files that you have for 5 or 6 fractions together to have like the whole set of data. While the last one นะครับ the last type of the backup is what we call continuous backup. Continuous backup here is a real-time streaming methods that record all the system activities. For example, if we say that okay, now somebody is just like what to say, add a record in the system, then you back it up. Now another user just add another record in the next second, you add another backup, something like that. This one is continuous. Then that means when any users do any transactions, you record it, you back it up straight away. This one is very, very expensive hardware because you need to have a hardware to stand by of any transaction all the time. Also, it's expensive in terms of software and network capacity as well, because this one นะครับ for this kind of backup, it will be triggered when any users just like do any activities นะครับ with the system. But anyway, recovery is very fast because you have everything in your hand already นะครับ and you back up everything. Suppose okay, we back up every time that users just like enter or click on a save button, something like that. And then after the last click, it's blacked out. So at that time, it means that no one can do anything, right? But when the electricity comes back, you can do the recovery process immediately because you have everything until the last click of users already. Because I mean like you have the previous one before the interruption นะครับ let's imagine that okay what is a continuous backup let's think of just writing down นะครับ any Word document นะครับ if this one you don't use the internet connection you just save everything in your computer so when you type anything you press Ctrl S to save when you type another sentence you press Ctrl S to save so the last time when you press Ctrl S and then your Microsoft Word is crashed when you just like reopen it นะครับ it's easy for you because you had the last save already but you can see that in here you had to spend lots of like hardware software and network hardware and software when you save it นะครับ because I mean like this one is for the PC นะครับ but if you are talking about the server you can see that okay you don't have just one user to use your system let's imagine that if you have like 1,000 users every time when those 1,000 user click on something you save you back up straight away that one you have to spend a lot of resources the computing resource นะครับ that's why this one is the expensive way to do นะครับ and for this kind of backup นะครับ you just like do it นะครับ we usually do it only used by large firm and network based systems นะครับ one good example for continuous backup นะครับ is like when you use Google Doc every time you type it's safe นะครับ but it just might be like 5 or 10 seconds delay นะครับ depends on just like how Google set the measure in order to have the backup because or saving because you can see that otherwise if the internet connection is lost นะครับ and it doesn't save for you you lost that document นะครับ you lost that message that you try to type in so that's why this one because actually Google has like a very large server then they can do it นะครับ in order to serve for all of their users next นะครับ when we talk about like different type of backup already the next thing that we have to think about is the business continuity issues how do we have how can we help the business นะครับ to run their system 24 hours a day นะครับ to run the system 24 by 7 without interruption then we need to have the test plan นะครับ for example if the primary server is shut down นะครับ in for how long will we have to do in order to let the secondary server to start up for example if the first the first server is using you may have a secondary server as well but it runs in the background mode when the first or the primary server is broken then the secondary server start full as a full function then you might need to have a test plan before you really introduce this kind of the business continuity so that means at most users might have like some see some like stopping for let's say a minute when the system switch from the first server to the second server and then you need to set up the plan as well that okay because you have to invest in the computing resources for the secondary server storage network นะครับ how do you gonna have the business continuity plan sometimes you may have hot site hot site means the secondary site that you set up นะครับ not for backup but it's the hot site that means it's the secondary server so if you remember I told you about the secondary site นะครับ of the bank actually it's not just a backup site นะครับ but it's a hot site as well that means if the main server นะครับ or the mainframe computer in the headquarters is shut down by any reasons นะครับ the hot site นะครับ will start automatically and immediately so that the users นะครับ can still use like the information from the bank นะครับ and data replication this one needs a plan as well how do you gonna have the hot site นะครับ or the secondary server นะครับ to have the data as if you are having those data in the primary server so that means when the hot site server start all of the data must be ready นะครับ not just the software inside but the data as well so which one that we are going to use so normally for the hot site we normally don't use the backup data นะครับ we need to have everything to be the same as the primary server นะครับ so that means because I mean like if you have to do if you have backup you have to do recovery and when you have to do recovery you can see that you waste the time นะครับ because you can see that we have to compile all of the files all of the data that we have from full backup นะครับ plus the incremental backup plus differential backup นะครับ at least you have to spend half a day in order to start up the secondary server if you don't have any data นะครับ to be ready so that's why hot site นะครับ or secondary server must have the equal number of data as the primary server but if you don't have at least you have the data as much as you can and then you have to know that what is the status of the hot site what are the difference of the data that you have to just like get from the recovery process นะครับ from the backup set of data นะครับ to make the hot site to be started up because otherwise if you have to recover นะครับ sometimes the primary site can come back already but the secondary side or hot side still not finished yet something like that so it's useless นะครับ so that's why you have to think about the business continuity plan or BCP carefully the next part นะครับ that you have to know apart from backup and disaster recovery is the system obsolescence the system obsolescence some point นะครับ at some point every system becomes obsolete นะครับ so what does it mean the old system that we use before the current system has been using if you remember at the very beginning we call those system as is system or we may call it as legacy system at some point those systems become obsolete you don't use it anymore because finally you turn to the new system already system operation and support continues until a replacement is installed นะครับ so now the old system comes to the end of its operational life นะครับ at some point in a system operational life maintenance costs start to increase users begin to ask for more features and capability นะครับ new system requests are submitted and then the SDLC begins again นะครับ so but anyway for the old system one day you have to shut it down and don't use it anymore but I mean like the to be system that you propose and we launch when you use it for a while it will become as is and the users would like to have something new or some technology arrive then the maintenance costs start to increase for some example นะครับ you might say that no because the old technology that stuff is not expensive for example the hard drive is cheaper and cheaper yeah I understand and I agree but the point that you have to know นะครับ some of the servers when you have been using it for a while the price I mean like when you compare the price per each megabyte is cheaper and cheaper but the problem is that if the current server นะครับ the hard drive is broken and you have to find a spare one sometimes it's out of stock already it's just like discontinued because they changed the technology for the hard drive already so what will happen if the hard drive is broken you cannot find a brand new hard drive in that model in the market anymore because the port that you use in order to connect might be different นะครับ the electricity power นะครับ that you have to just like use the cable to just like plug into the hard drive is changed the interface is changed so what happened was sometimes you have to find those kind of like secondhand hard drive in the aftermarket and sometimes it costs you a lot of money too because they know that you want it I remember that okay one of my friends company they had the old system that they cannot stop using it because I mean that their legacy system it has like all the accounting data that they still use until now then they had to just like turn on that server นะครับ every day The problem was that the hard drive, some part is broken. It got the bad sector already. I remember that in that model, for that model of the hard drive, it costs around, let's say, if I'm not wrong, it's around like 10,000 baht per one hard drive. I couldn't remember the size of the hard drive when they purchased it. Then they had to buy the second-hand one because no interface of the hard drive for the new hard drive model anymore. So they had to buy the second-hand one, same size. It cost my friend around like 8 or 9,000 baht per one hard drive. You can see that if we are talking about the current situation, 8,000, 9,000 baht, you can buy like 6 or 7 or 10 terabytes of the new hard drive. But for that old hard drive, you have to spend 9,000 baht for the second-hand hard drive, and the size or the capacity of that hard drive may be just like at most 1 terabyte only or less. So this one is expensive. And why don't we just like port those systems into the new server instead? The problem was that the architecture of the program was 32 bits. Sorry, not 32, not even 32 bits. It was 16 bits. Created since we had like the very first version of Windows. Let's say it was Windows XP, something like that. So it's impossible to port directly the system from Windows XP to Windows 10 server. So that's why you couldn't stop using the old server. Then the maintenance cost is higher and higher. And finally, you couldn't use it anymore because when you cannot find those kind of technology, I mean, I'm sure that in the future, the things including the network card, and network protocol for that server cannot be used anymore. So finally, they have to stop using those servers anyway. Okay, so when we talk about this kind of thing, what is the future challenges and opportunities? We've got the prediction that the highest priority will be the safety and security of corporate operations, environmental concerns, and bottom line total cost of ownership. Gartner Inc. That is the research company. It is a leading IT consulting firm that is famous for forecasting industry trends. The author of Gartner, who just like write down the articles, his name is Randall Strauss. He notes that the enormous amount of energy needed to drive cloud computing, including Google servers, has raised serious environmental concerns. You can see that right now. Even we talk about like Tesla company. They try to just like stop using, Elon Musk, he tried to just like sell out all of his Bitcoin because he said that, okay, in order to have those Bitcoins, they have to use like the servers in order to dig the Bitcoins. That just like don't save environmental, that don't save environment. That's why he just like decide to sell out all of those Bitcoins. So this one is one of the prediction in the near future. We try to use a technology that does not destroy environment much. Okay, and for the strategic planning, for IT professionals, working backward from your long-term goals, you can develop intermediate milestones and begin to manage your career just as you would manage an IT project. So when we talk about long-term goals, okay,